I heard the door lock. The click of the bolt was soft, but to me it sounded like a gunshot through my chest. I stood there frozen with the coffee tray trembling in my wrinkled hands, trying to process what had just happened. My own son, my Thomas, had just locked me out of the bedroom where I had slept for 30 years with Robert. The bedroom where I cried when my husband passed away. The bedroom that had always been mine. Before I continue, tell me in the comments which city you're reading this story from, and if you've ever experienced something similar. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss stories like this one. Mom Jennifer needs a more comfortable room because of her back pain. You understand, right? He had told me this yesterday, with that smile he'd used since childhood when he wanted something. The same smile that made me work 2 shifts at the sewing factory when he needed braces. The same smile that convinced me to mortgage the house to pay for his college. It's just for a few days, until we find our own place. 3 months. It had been 3 months since Thomas and Jennifer had come to temporarily stay at my house in Springfield after their wedding. At first I was happy. At 68, loneliness weighs more than the pain in my knees. I prepared the guest room with my best towels, the ones I received from Mrs. Eleanor when I retired from the beauty salon. I made pudding, chocolate fudge. I even learned how to make that risotto that Jennifer liked so much. I placed the tray on the kitchen table and sat in the plastic chair. The coffee was getting cold while I tried to breathe. Through the window, I could see the blackberry bush that Robert had planted the day we bought the house, 35 years ago, with his severance pay and my savings from when I was a manicurist. When Jennifer arrived, I thought her looks were strange, the way she glanced at the furniture, at the peeling walls, at the curtains I had sewn myself. "Mrs. Martha, have you never thought about renovating? This place could be so charming." I smiled awkwardly. Renovate with what money? My pension barely covered medications and bills. The first week was smooth. Thomas would leave early for his job at the insurance company, and Jennifer and I would stay home. She worked remotely as a marketing analyst, always glued to her laptop. I made lunch, cleaned the house, took care of the routine as I always had. But soon the comments started. "Mrs. Martha, this chicken is too dry. This detergent smells too strong. It gives me allergies. You don't need to clean my room. I don't like people touching my things." It wasn't my room anymore. It was her room. Days passed, and I was gradually pushed into the corners of my own home. First, it was the space in the refrigerator. Then, the TV remote. My plants were removed from the porch because they gave her allergies. My old photo frames were put away because they collected dust. Last night I heard them talking in the bedroom while I was washing dishes. "Honey, I can't stand this hard bed anymore. And this room is tiny for the 2 of us." "What do you want me to do, Jen?" "Your mother has a huge bedroom all to herself. She could easily stay in the guest room." Silence. A silence that said everything. "I'll talk to her tomorrow, Thomasy," replied in a low voice. And this morning he came with that "just for a few days" talk. I agreed, of course. I've always agreed to everything Thomas asked for. While they went out to get coffee from the bakery, I started gathering some clothes and personal items to take to the guest room. That's when Jennifer returned alone earlier than expected. "Mrs. Martha, let me help you organize your things." And before I could say anything, she was already packing my creams, my medications, my photos. With cruel efficiency, she separated what she thought was important and left the rest. When I tried to take my blue satin robe, a gift for my 20th wedding anniversary, she said softly, "This is so pretty. I'll leave it here to wear sometimes. You don't mind, do you?" I did mind. I minded very much. But I smiled and said I didn't. I've always smiled and said I didn't. When I returned from the kitchen with coffee for both of us, The door was already closed. I tried to turn the knob, but it was locked. That's when I heard the click. That's when everything inside me closed up too. Now I'm sitting here in the kitchen of the house I built, expelled from my own bedroom, from my own memories. The guest room is small, the bed creaks, the closet has a broken door, and the outlets don't work properly, but that's not what hurts. What hurts is the look in my son's eyes, avoiding mine when Jennifer is around. What hurts is realizing that, for him I've become a burden. Why can't I say no? Why do I accept everything silently? Margaret, my childhood friend, always says I'm too soft. Martha, you give them an inch and they take a mile. Maybe she's right. But he's my son, my only son, the boy I cradled during nights with fever, for whom I sang Rock-a-Bye Baby 1,000 times until he fell asleep, for whom I saved penny by penny to buy his first bicycle. The afternoon. Sun shines through the kitchen window, illuminating the ceramic floor that was once white and is now yellowed with time. I remember when I chose this flooring with Robert. "It will look nice," he said. "It will match the blue walls you want to paint." Robert always supported my choices, even the simplest ones. How I miss him now. I hear laughter coming from the bedroom. My bedroom. Jennifer is on the phone, probably with a friend. Yes, we're adapting super well. The house is old, but it has its charm. We're thinking about renovating it little by little. Renovate? Since when does my house need renovation? And with what money? Thomas's mother is a sweetheart, but you know how old people are, right? They have a habit of keeping everything, accumulating things. We're helping her get organized. Get organized? They're erasing me from my own story. I get up slowly, my joints hurting more than usual. I go to the small guest room, where my things are now piled in grocery bags and cardboard boxes. I didn't even have time to organize anything properly. I sit on the bed and look through the small window that faces the neighbor's wall. There's no view, no blackberry bush, nothing. I open one of the boxes and find the picture frame with the photo from Thomas's wedding. I'm smiling next to him, proud, wearing my best turquoise blue dress. It was the happiest day of my life after Robert passed away. I was so hopeful. I thought Thomas would finally find someone to share his life with, to build a family. I never imagined that person would be someone who would make me feel like an intruder in my own home. I put the photo back in the box when I hear knocking at the door. "Mom, can I come in?" It's Thomas. I take a deep breath and adjust my posture. "Of you." "Course, son. The house is yours now, apparently." He enters embarrassed, running his hand through his brown hair, exactly as he did when he was a child and broke something. "Mom, don't talk like that. We just thought it would be better for Jennifer. She has back problems, you know, and this room is cozier for you." Cozy? With the mold in the corner of the wall and the dampness that rises from the baseboard? I try not to show what I'm feeling, but something inside me breaks. For the first time in a long time, I decide to speak up. Cozy would have been if you had asked me first, Thomas. Cozy would be respecting the space I've built over a lifetime. He seems surprised by my response. Maybe he's never heard me talk like this before. "Mom, I'm sorry, but it was all kind of quick, and you found it easier to push me aside than to stand up to your wife. I understand." His eyes fill with tears. For a moment I see the boy who made excuses not to go to school. But soon his expression changes. Jennifer's voice echoes from the hallway. "Honey, did you talk to your mother about us repainting the room? That yellow is so depressing." And at that moment something inside me breaks completely. Something that had been intact for too long. Maybe it's time for a change. For real. I watch my son leave the room without answering me, returning to the arms of the wife who now governs every inch of the house I built. And for the first time in 68 years, I begin to plan a silent rebellion. And you, what would you do if your son also refused to look you in the eyes? That night I couldn't sleep. The thin mattress in the guest room made my back hurt, and the dampness in the walls worsened my sinusitis. But it wasn't just the physical discomfort keeping me awake. It was a new restlessness, an anger I had never felt before, an anger at myself for having allowed things to reach this point. The next day, I got up very early, as I always did. I prepared breakfast, as always. Scrambled eggs for Thomas, whole wheat toast for Jennifer, fresh orange juice. Everything impeccable, as I had learned to do since I married Robert. I set the table and waited. They appeared almost an hour later when the coffee was already cold. Jennifer looked at the food with disdain. "Mrs. Martha, I mentioned I'm avoiding dairy, remember? Does this egg have milk in it?" "No, Jennifer, it's just egg." But it has this creamy appearance." "I'll pass, thank you. Let's get breakfast at the cafe, honey." Thomas barely looked at me. He just grabbed the car keys and nodded. They left without saying goodbye. I sat there, looking at the set table, at the untouched food. All my effort, wasted, as my entire life seemed to be. That's when I made a decision. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Attorney Helen? This is Martha Williams. We need to talk about my house." Helen had been Robert's lawyer when he needed to resolve issues with his retirement, a serious woman with square glasses and gray hair always tied in a bun, a woman who didn't bow her head to anyone. "Martha, it's been so long. Of course we can talk. Has something happened?" "A lot has happened. Helen, a lot." We scheduled for the next day, at a cafe near her office in downtown Springfield. When I hung up, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. It was as if I were about to commit a crime, or perhaps I was about to free myself from one. The coffee with Attorney Helen changed everything. Sitting there at the corner table of Sweet Home Bakery, I told her every detail of the past few months. I spoke about how my son and daughter-in-law had transformed my life into a silent hell. I told her about the taken bedroom, about my things, packed as if they were trash, about the malicious comments whispered when they thought I wasn't listening. "Martha, the house is in your name, right?" Helen asked, adjusting her square glasses. "Yes. Robert made sure everything was documented. It was the only inheritance he left me." "Then you're the only legal owner. It doesn't matter that your son is living there. He has no rights to the property." Her words fell like fresh water on my parched soul. I had power. I had rights. I had a choice. "What do you want to do, Martha?" Helen asked, her eyes firmly on mine. The question echoed inside me. What did I want? For so long my desires had been silenced, my needs postponed in the name of others' well-being. Robert's, when he was sick. Thomas's, at every stage of his life. And now Jennifer's, a stranger who had entered my house and expelled me from my own bedroom. "I want my life back, Helen." She smiled, a firm, complicit smile. "There are several options. We can formally notify them to leave. We can file for repossession if they refuse. Or," she paused, taking a sip of her black coffee, "or we can be more strategic." That afternoon, Helen explained something that had never crossed my mind: selling the house. The idea scared me at first. That house held my memories, my history with Robert Thomas's first steps, but it also held my current prison. Think about it, Martha. With the money from the sale, you could buy a smaller apartment, easier to maintain, maybe in a complex with security, and you'd still have enough left to live more comfortably. I returned home with my head buzzing with ideas. For the first time in months, I felt hope. A mischievous, almost cruel hope, but hope nonetheless. End. The following weeks, while Thomas and Jennifer continued their lives ignoring my existence, I began to put the plan into action. Helen introduced me to a discreet realtor who perfectly understood the situation. The house was valued at much more than I had imagined. The neighborhood had appreciated in recent years, and even needing renovations, the large lot was attractive. Mrs. Martha, finding a buyer will take time, said Carla, the red-haired realtor. People usually want to visit, negotiate. But she was wrong. In the second week, a businessman from New York who was investing in properties in the area became interested. He offered cash without even visiting properly. He just drove by, liked the location, and made an offer. It's less than we could get if we waited longer, Carla explained. But it's a good amount, and he's not insisting on a detailed inspection. Helen thought it was suspicious, but she investigated. The buyer and everything was in order. It seemed the universe was conspiring in my favor, or maybe it was just Robert up there giving me a little help. I signed the papers on a gray Thursday in May. The money would be deposited the following Monday, and then the new owner would have the right to take immediate possession. The buyer requested absolute discretion, which was perfect for my plans. On Saturday, I prepared a special lunch, beef stew, as Thomas had liked since childhood, fluffy rice, sautéed greens with garlic, bacon cornbread I had learned from my mother. The smell of food invaded the entire house. To my surprise, Thomas and Jennifer appeared in the kitchen, attracted by the aroma. "Wow, Mom, that smells good," said Thomas, his stomach audibly growling. Jennifer seemed less enthusiastic, but still, she stayed. "I made it for you," I said, smiling. "It's been a while since we ate together as a family." They exchanged glances, perhaps feeling a twinge of guilt, or perhaps just too hungry to refuse. We sat at the table as we hadn't done in weeks. The food was perfect. Even Jennifer admitted the stew was surprisingly light. During lunch, I talked about my childhood in Virginia, about how my parents had taught me to value family above all else. I talked about the day I met Robert at a carnival dance in Richmond, about our move to Springfield when Thomas was only 3 years old. "Remember that day, son? You cried the whole trip because you didn't want to leave your wooden train behind, and we ended up forgetting it anyway, in a box we only opened months later." Thomas smiled, perhaps remembering, or perhaps just being polite. "The house was falling apart when we bought it," I continued. "Your father worked every weekend to fix the roof, paint the walls. I planted every flower in that garden with my own hands." I saw something in Thomas's eyes, a glimmer of recognition, perhaps even remorse, but Jennifer interrupted. "Mrs. Martha, speaking of renovations, was thinking of breaking down the wall between the living room and kitchen to make the space more open. Do you mind?" I smiled, serene as I had never been. "Not at all, dear. This house deserves to be transformed according to your dreams." After lunch, I collected the dishes while they returned to the bedroom, my former bedroom. I heard Jennifer commenting that I was strangely happy today, if only she knew. The next morning, Sunday, I woke up early and made coffee. I prepared cheese biscuits, put flowers on the table. I wore my best dress, that navy blue one that Robert always said matched my eyes. At 9 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I answered it with my heart beating fast. It was a man in a suit, holding a folder. Next to him, Carla, the realtor, and further back, a young couple I had never seen before. "Mrs. Martha? I'm process server Edward Carter. I'm here to deliver the notification of property transfer and the eviction notice." I opened the door completely, inviting them in. In the hallway, Thomas appeared, still in his pajamas, confused. "Mom, who are these people?" "They're the new owners of the house, son, and the process server who came to notify us that we have 30 days to leave." His face transformed into a mask of shock and incomprehension. Jennifer appeared right behind him with a similar expression. "What do you mean, new owners? What are you talking about?" The process server handed the documents to Thomas, who took them with trembling hands. "Is your name Thomas Williams? This is a formal notice that this property has been sold by the legal owner, Martha Williams. The new owners," he pointed to the young couple behind him, "will take possession in 30 days. You need to vacate the property by then." Jennifer snatched the papers from Thomas's hands, her eyes quickly scanning the pages. "This can't be legal. We live here. We have rights." "Actually, ma'am," the process server continued impassively, "you have no legal rights to this property. There's no rental agreement, no documentation proving any right to stay. The only owner was Mrs. Martha, and she exercised her right to sell." Thomas looked at me as if I were a stranger, as if he didn't recognize me. "Mom, why?" I took a deep breath, feeling a calmness I hadn't felt in months. "Because you locked me out of my life and called me a burden. Now I'm removing that burden from the house." Jennifer started shouting, accusing me of ingratitude, of betrayal, of insanity. Thomas tried to argue, talking about family, about love, about everything they had done for me. "Done for me?" I repeated, incredulous. "Expelled me from my bedroom? Made me feel like an intruder in the house I built? Treated me like a useless old woman who only gets in the way?" And at that moment I saw the mask fall. I saw Jennifer transform her pretty face into an expression of contempt. I saw my son, my Thomas, lower his eyes, unable to defend the indefensible. "Where will you live?" he finally asked, his voice low. "I bought a small apartment in Oak Grove." "Condominiums. It's simple, but it has a balcony where I can have my plants. And the best part, it's all mine." The process server and the new owners left after explaining the legal details. Carla stayed a little longer, giving me silent support. Thomas and Jennifer locked themselves in the bedroom, now really no longer mine, and didn't come out for the rest of the day. "And what about you? What would you do if you were in my place? Would you forgive or move forward like I did?" In the days that followed, the house transformed into a silent battlefield. Jennifer completely ignored me. Thomas alternated between awkward attempts at reconciliation and barely contained fits of anger. I heard them arguing several times, their voices rising in volume through the thin walls. "How are we going to pay rent now?" "All our money is going toward the wedding." "It's your fault. If you had controlled your mother properly, this wouldn't have happened." I began to pack my things calmly, separating what I wanted to take to my new life. It was surprising how, after decades of accumulating objects, memories, clothes, dishes, I now only wanted the essentials: the photos of Robert, the drawings Thomas made in school, the tea set I inherited from my mother. The rest could stay behind, like the old skin of a snake that renews itself. In the 3rd week after the notification, Thomas came to talk to me while I was organizing my books. "Mom, I wanted to apologize." I looked at him, at the face I knew so well. Robert's eyes, my mother's nose, my son, my only son. "For what exactly, Thomas?" He swallowed hard, his hands restless. "For everything. For letting Jennifer take over the house. For not defending you, for forgetting who was always by my side." Part of me wanted to hug him, to say it was all right, that I understood, that a mother's love forgives everything. It's what I had always done. It's what they expected from me. But something had changed inside me, something fundamental and irreversible. It wasn't just forgetting Thomas. It was consciously choosing to ignore my feelings, my needs. It was locking me out of my own bedroom and thinking I should be grateful for still having a place to sleep in my own house. He lowered his eyes, ashamed. Jennifer and I broke up, he finally said. She went to live with her sister in Hartford. She said she doesn't want anything to do with me or the problematic family I have. I felt no satisfaction at the news. Just a deep sadness for everything that could have been different. I'm sorry, son. Can I go with you? To the new apartment? The question caught me by surprise. It was exactly what my old self would have wanted to hear. A chance to have my son back, to take care of him, to be needed again. But the new Martha, the one being born from the ashes of humiliation, knew it would just be repeating the cycle. No, Thomas, you need to find your own path now, and I need to find mine. On moving day, a company hired by Helen came to pick up my boxes. Thomas helped, carrying the heavier volumes. We didn't talk much, but there was a silent respect between us. When the truck left, we stood on the sidewalk, looking at the house where we had lived for so many years. It's strange, he said. I always thought this house would be eternal. Nothing is eternal, son. Not houses, not grudges. Before getting into the taxi that would take me to my new home, I handed him an envelope. What's this? Money from the sale of the house. I set aside a portion for you. It's not much, but it's enough to start over. His eyes filled with tears. Mom, after everything I did. It's not forgiveness, Thomas. It's an opportunity. What you do with it depends only on you. My new apartment was small but full of light. The balcony overlooked a tree-lined square where children played on Sunday afternoons. The walls were white and clean, without the stains of painful memories. I bought new furniture, simple but comfortable. I planted geraniums in colorful pots. I put Robert's photos on the small living room table. 3 months later, I received an unexpected call. It was Jessica, my 17-year-old granddaughter, Thomas's daughter from his first marriage. I hadn't seen her in years. Her mother had moved to Seattle when she was little. Grandma, it's Jess. I'm spending vacation with my dad, and I really wanted to see you. The following weekend, Jessica came to visit me. A beautiful young woman with curly hair and an easy smile, with the same curious eyes Thomas had at her age. Wow, Grandma, what a cool apartment. So cozy. I made cornbread, her favorite when she was a child. We sat on the balcony talking about her plans to study medicine in college, about her friends, her dreams. At no point did we talk about the past, about the sold house, about Jennifer. Just about the present, about the future. Before leaving, she hugged me tightly. Grandma, I wish I could have stayed closer. Dad told me what happened, you know? I was so angry with him. I ran my hand through her curls, smelling the soft scent of her shampoo. Don't be angry with your father, my dear. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them. I took a small, shiny silver key from my pocket and placed it in her hand. What's this, Grandma? It's the key to my apartment. I want you to have it, so you'll always know that no matter what happens, you'll always have a place that's yours here with me. Her eyes shone with contained tears. I hugged her again, feeling the sweet weight of that moment. Jessica began to visit me regularly. Sometimes she brought a friend. Sometimes she came alone. On Sunday afternoons, she would study at my table while I knitted or read. A peaceful coexistence without demands, without suffocating expectations. The kind of love I should have had with Thomas, but that I only learned to give now, at 68 years old. Over time, I began to participate in a support group for elderly women at the neighborhood association. Women who, like me, had been marginalized, forgotten, treated as burdens by their own families. We shared stories, tears, but mainly we shared strength. That's where I met Vera, a 75-year-old lady who had gone through something even worse. Her son sold the house where she lived without her consent, forging her signature on documents. When Vera's story was shared in the group, something awakened in me. "We need to do more than just talk," I said in one of the meetings. "We need to act." With Helen's help, my lawyer, who was now also my friend, we created a housing fund for elderly women in vulnerable situations. I used part of the money from the sale of the house, and other women in the group also contributed what they could. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Thomas showed up at my door 6 months after the move. He was thinner, with deep, dark circles under his eyes, but there was something different in his gaze, a clarity that wasn't there before. "Mom, can I come in?" I invited him for coffee. We sat on the balcony, where the geraniums were blooming in vibrant shades of red and pink. "I started therapy," he said, looking at the cup in his hands. "I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I allowed Jennifer to treat you that way. Why I treated you that way myself." I said nothing. I just waited, letting him find his own words, his own path. "I think I always assumed you would. Be there, no matter what happened. That your love was unconditional. That I could push you into a corner and you would always come back. Because that's what mothers do, right? They endure everything, forgive everything." I took a sip of my coffee, feeling the sweet bitterness on my tongue. Mothers are people, Thomas, with limits, with pains, with needs. We're not saints or martyrs. We're women who love, but who also need to be loved and respected. He nodded, a tear rolling down his face. "I know that now. Too late, but I know. It's never too late to learn, son." It wasn't an immediate reconciliation. There were no dramatic hugs or grand declarations of forgiveness. There were wounds too deep to be healed with quick gestures. But it was a beginning of something new, something different, something more honest between us. Thomas started visiting me once a week, sometimes coinciding with Jessica, sometimes not. We began to build a new relationship, based not on obligation or guilt, but on mutual respect, on accepting who we really were with our flaws and virtues. One day, almost a year after selling the house, I passed by the old street. It wasn't planned. The bus I took made a detour because of road work, and suddenly there I was, in front of the blue house with the blackberry bush in the garden. It had been completely renovated. The facade, once peeling, now displayed a more vibrant shade of blue. The garden had been redesigned with new plants, a stone path. The windows were new, with white frames that elegantly contrasted with the walls. I felt no pain seeing the changes. I felt no nostalgia or regret. Just a strange peace, as if that house was no longer part of me, nor I of it, as if we had freed each other. When the bus started moving again, I didn't look back. My life now was elsewhere, a place smaller in size, but infinitely larger in dignity, in self-esteem, in possibilities. In my apartment, I organized a dinner to celebrate my 70th birthday. A small table, just Jessica, Thomas, Helen, and some friends from the support group. There was no luxury, no ostentation. Just people who genuinely cared about each other, sharing a simple meal prepared with love. During dinner, Thomas raised his wine glass. "To my mother," he said, his voice breaking, "who taught me that love is not submission, that respect is not optional, and that it is never, never too late to start over." We toasted, the crystal glasses clinking softly in the warm summer night. I looked around the table at those smiling faces and felt a quiet, mature happiness. A happiness that didn't come from sacrifices, from self-denial, from erasure, but from affirmation, from presence, from self-worth. I hadn't just sold a house. I had bought my freedom, my dignity, my life back, and that was priceless. Thank you for reading to the end. If this story touched you in any way, like and share it with someone who needs to hear this.